Blackrot was still bleeding from the wound that Tobias had inflicted upon him, and although it was slowly regenerating, it would still put him at a severe disadvantage in a prolonged fight. His eyes quickly darted around as he saw a Skaven trying to crawl away. Its legs were burnt beyond use, but that didn't matter, only serving to elevate its own internal efforts. Blackrot reached down and picked the creature up by the fur on its back, and as he did so his mouth and jaw stretched open like some form of unnatural snake. The group had a look of disgust on their faces as the man swallowed the pestilent beast whole, and almost instantly afterwards the cut on his neck began to heal at an even faster rate, as within seconds there was only a scar left. The sight of the creature going down Blackrot's throat was almost enough to make several members of the party vomit at the sight, and only Dieter and Tordrad could keep a semi-serious look upon their faces. With a last look behind him, Tordrad saw that Dieter had made his way over to the fallen warrior priest, and was attempting to aid Rysandria in keeping the young man alive. He then faced forwards once more and launched himself into battle with a Kislevite war cry. Caught by surprise, Blackrot raised his sword to block, but Tordrad's strike was able to push him back. His strength, thought Rysandria. It is on par with Bonesaw's back when we last faced them. The champion was taken aback, being almost knocked off of his feet by the sheer power behind the attack. He had expected a growth in power, but had also thought the Kislevite to have become lazy due to his time in the Empire. Tordrad swung again, his blow sending sparks from contact with the shield, almost knocking it from Blackrot's hands. He knew that he had to survive. He had to complete his bodyguard duty to the stupid wizard in his care, for a start. Tobias had moved to one side as Tordrad made his assault, using the distraction of the Kislevite's attacks to sneak around behind the Chaos Warrior. If there was a weak point in that armour of the man's body itself, he had to find it before Blackrot could regain his footing under Tordrad's furious attacks. His eyes scanned the armour and stance for any sort of opening, as his gaze fell upon a large growth that was strangely not covered even in part by the Chaos armour. It was right in the middle of his back. Tobias gripped his dagger tightly and lunged forwards, instinctively throwing his body to one side just in case some form of vile substance erupted from the impact, as he had seen and narrowly avoided before. The timing could have not been better, for as soon as Blackrot had slammed his shield into Tordrad, almost sending the Kossar onto the floor with the sheer force of it, from which he would then have used the opening to do to the Kislevite what he had done to Tristram, thus finishing off another of the close combatants, Tobias's dagger rapidly struck his target, and the champion cried out in surprised agony as he was left prone for a few seconds, affording the time for Tordrad to take advantage. The Kislevite's axe crashed into Blackrot's chest, cleaving through the armour and even through that seemingly impervious body, spraying black blood into the air. Falling to his knees, the champion's eyes were wide in shock. Not once but twice he had been wounded by members of this group. He had not felt pain like this since he had gained his mutations all those years ago, and he was oblivious to the fact that Tordrad stood above him, axe raised. The blade fell, and moments later the sound of flesh on stone was heard throughout the room. Tordrad's weapon was dripping with black blood, and he was breathing heavily from being winded by the shield just seconds before. One hand was on his chest, but he knew the pain would go soon. He could do with a drink right about now, though. Tristram smiled. These 5 people were far more skilled than their appearance led one to believe. He could feel the poison in his system spreading even faster, no matter what Rysandria and Dieter attempted to do otherwise, for Blackrot's power had been derived too closely to the pure source of Nurgle for mere mortals to comprehend. The sword that the champion wielded began to hiss and smoke, grabbing the group's attention. The blade lost all form, transforming into a variety of insects and spiders. Then just as suddenly, the corpse of Blackrot began to contort here and there into strange shapes, beginning to emit sounds as well, until the body burst, tearing through both his skin and armour as if it wasn't there. As it did so, a swarm of Nurglings emerged. They clawed their way out of the body and looked upon the group with pitifully dull and tortured eyes, intent on making them share in their torments. Tordrad pulled back as they tried to move towards him. His eyes fell upon the wizard expectantly. Maestro saw this and commented, I'm spent! Any more magical output from me could kill us all! I can't concentrate a channel now, and thusly I cannot guarantee your safety. His face looked drained as well. His body hunched over in fatigue. Tordrad had never seen him like this before. At these words, the others in the group began to mutter, hope becoming lost from their hearts, as the Nurgling swarm amassed to such a great size that it turned the floor into completely covering green, mucky ooze where they trod. They were without number, pouring from the corpse like water from a tap. Dieter propped himself up on his stave, preparing to fight with the last of his power too. Tobias readied his dagger once more, knowing that this was probably the end. Olga whined feebly where before he growled. The Nurglings at last reached the group. Everyone swung their weapons in frontal swiping arcs in an attempt at simply keeping the creatures back. This was an effective attack in itself, as several of the demons were killed by the effort, but still they were replaced by more and more of them. As each moment went by, the group fought bravely but were forced to step back until the wall behind them was close. By now, everyone fighting in the group had been lacerated or stung in some way, at least several times, and they were quickly tiring from the endless onslaught.